My older sister, Mia, who is 26, has always had difficulty accepting my happiness, seemingly envious of a life she believed I didn't deserve. Despite her beauty and intelligence, Mia's life took a tumultuous turn after she dropped out of college to marry a wealthy man who eventually left her after seeing her true nature. Now divorced and jobless, she lives with our parents. Growing up, Mia was the star in our family's eyes, always receiving their praises, which left me feeling inadequate and overlooked. Her constant taunts during our childhood amplified my insecurities, as she would mock me, saying that no one liked me. Her actions and words created a deep-rooted sense of insecurity in me, and any attempt to voice my feelings was dismissed by our parents, who seemed blind to her manipulative behavior. As we grew older, her narcissistic traits became more apparent. She engaged in several harmful antics, like sabotaging my school projects and using my phone to send embarrassing photos to my friends, all to maintain her superior status at home. Despite the occasional scolding from Dad, Mia never faced any real consequences, which only encouraged her behavior. Things started looking up for me after high school. I worked hard, got into my dream college, and eventually landed a job that brought me great fulfillment. It was there that I met Mark, a wonderful man who soon became my partner. Our relationship flourished, filled with travel and adventure, and I was cautious about introducing him to my family due to Mia's unpredictable nature. However, as our wedding approached, my worst fears materialized. Mia attempted to seduce Mark, an act caught on camera, which finally exposed her manipulative tendencies to everyone, including our parents. Shocked by her actions, they could no longer ignore the truth and had to confront the reality of her behavior, which led to her being disowned. This painful revelation, while difficult, brought us certain relief. It marked a turning point where I could finally step out from under the shadow of Mia's influence and embrace a life with Mark, free from the turmoil that had overshadowed my 2 years. Despite my relationship with Mark flourishing, I couldn't put off introducing him to my family any longer. After dating for a year and a half, Mark began to question my hesitation. So I spoke with my dad, who was thrilled to hear I'd found someone who he deemed worthy of me. He promptly invited us over for dinner. While I was excited, I also felt stressed knowing my sister Mia's tendency to disrupt my life. Aware of my family dynamics, I had a thorough conversation with Mark about the situation. He was understanding and reassured me that he would handle whatever came our way. A few days after talking to my dad, Mia unexpectedly called me. It was odd, considering she never reached out first. She was oddly inquisitive about Mark and my plans to visit home, clearly probing for information, likely prompted by our mom who'd mentioned my serious relationship. Mia's sudden warmth seemed strategic, and it raised alarms about her intentions. Concerned, I pondered whether introducing Mark to Mia was worth the risk or if it would be safer to have my parents visit us instead. Reflecting on Mia's history helps explain my caution. Her academic prowess was overshadowed by her obsession with appearance once she started college. During this time, she met William, a wealthy man, and quickly prioritized him over her studies. While I was preparing for my college entrance exams, Mia taunted me, claiming I'd never get into my dream school. Yet, when I did, and our parents celebrated my achievement, Mia couldn't handle the shift in attention. She impulsively announced her engagement to William during my celebration party, stealing the spotlight despite William's obvious surprise. Mia always flaunted the lavish gifts William gave her, taunting me by saying I'd never attract someone wealthy because of my looks. Her materialistic views were starkly opposed to my values. I believed in independence, not reliance on someone else's wealth. Shortly after, Mia and William held a grand wedding, predominantly funded by William, with my dad covering some costs out of formality. Their marriage lasted only 5 years, falling apart when Mia decided she didn't want children, a detail she had apparently never discussed with William. During my college years, I distanced myself, returning home only during holidays when Mia was usually away with William. Given all these experiences, my concerns about introducing Mark to this volatile mix-up family drama seemed well-founded. The advice I received from friends and the broader community only emphasized the need for careful handling of the situation, something I intended to manage with as much grace and caution as possible. William had always wanted to become a father, but he was disappointed that Mia had never been open about her reluctance to have children. He felt misled, as she had avoided the topic throughout their 5-year marriage. William also shared troubling behaviors of Mia, such as her frequent partying, flirting with other men at bars, and a clear focus on his wealth rather than emotional connection. He even showed me videos of her behaving inappropriately with other men during her nights out, reinforcing his relief at their separation. Despite William's grievances, my parents took Mia's side, blaming William for pressuring her about children and ignoring her problematic actions. After their divorce, Mia moved back in with my parents. Having dropped out of college to marry William, she now found herself without a degree or job prospects 5 years later. She pretended to be traumatized by the divorce, but quickly returned to a lifestyle of clubbing and casual relationships, flaunting her escapades on Instagram. 2 years into my career, I landed my new job and was doing very well financially, which thrilled my parents. During a celebratory dinner at home, Mia came back looking disheveled and partially intoxicated. This upset my dad, who expressed disappointment that Mia hadn't pursued her education and career like I had. He pointed out her financial dependency on them, which led my mom to caution him against such remarks. Mia, overhearing this, stormed off angrily. This was a turning point for my dad, who realized how indulged Mia had become. He urged my mom to encourage Mia to take responsibility for her life. That evening, Mia confronted me, trying to belittle me by mocking my appearance and claiming I could never match up to her, no matter my financial success. Her words no longer hurt me like they used to. Instead, I laughed off her insults and suggested she needed to adjust her attitude. This infuriated Mia, and she demanded I leave the house. I reminded her that it was our parents' home, not hers to control. The next day, as I packed to leave, I discovered that 3 of my dresses had been deliberately damaged. I showed them to my parents, revealing Mia's latest act of spite. My dad was furious and confronted Mia, but my mom attempted to downplay the incident, suggesting Mia was just acting out of shock. My dad had enough and sternly warned Mia that he could no longer financially support her or tolerate her destructive behavior. This confrontation only deepened Mia's resentment towards me, marking a clear divide in our already strained relationship. Having endured Mia's relentless hostility, I was initially indifferent to her antics, but things escalated when she began making advances towards my boyfriend, Mark. After much contemplation and discussion with Mark, we decided it was necessary for him to meet my family, including Mia. My friends suggested it was better to see how Mark would handle the situation sooner rather than later. When we arrived at my parents' houses, Mia's behavior was embarrassingly transparent. She had dyed her hair black and dressed up excessively, as though she was trying to impress Mark on a date. During introductions, she pushed her way into greeting Mark with an overly enthusiastic hug, ignoring everyone else's discomfort. At dinner, she made every attempt to insert herself into our conversation, claiming to share all of Mark's interests and exaggerating their compatibility, complete with suggestive winks. It was painfully obvious to everyone, including a very uncomfortable Mark, that she was trying too hard. Later, when I took a moment to shower, she seized the opportunity to ask Mark to help her find her phone, a thinly veiled excuse to get his number. Mia even resorted to sharing her tales of woe about her divorce, trying to elicit sympathy from Mark while our mother joined in to criticize William, Mia's ex. When Mark suggested a walk around the neighborhood to me, Mia quickly volunteered to join, only to be awkwardly rebuffed by Mark, who clarified he wanted time alone with me. Embarrassed, Mia retreated. Since that visit, I've been bracing myself for more of Mia's schemes to win over Mark. Despite my fears, I trust Mark and am curious to see how he handles her continued advances. Shortly after our visit, Mark proposed during a trip, and of course, I was ecstatic. Even after our engagement, Mia didn't give up. She began sending Mark messages filled with cat videos, a peculiar strategy given her known indifference to cats. She even went as far as to adopt a cat to further this new facade. Initially, Mark shared Mia's messages with me, showcasing her attempts to appear caring and involved. But after a while, he stopped mentioning them, which I interpreted as his way of sparing me the ongoing annoyance. This subtle shift in his handling of Mia's tactics only reinforced my trust in his loyalty and understanding of the delicate family dynamics we navigated together. After Mia's unsuccessful attempts to woo Mark, it seemed she had moved on, and so had we. Life was bustling with our demanding jobs, and honestly, we had far better things to focus on. However, a random scroll through social media revealed that Mia had recently connected with Mark's account, actively liking and commenting on nearly every post of his, even digging through archives as old as 7 to 8 years. Feeling uneasy, I impulsively checked Mark's phone and found that Mia had been sporadically texting him, although he hadn't read her messages. Her persistence appeared in the form of missed calls too, including one at 4:10 a.m., which really set off alarms for me. I confronted Marabut, not informing me of her continued attempts to contact him. He seemed nervous, but explained that he had been ignoring her to avoid drama, thinking it best not to worry me. Mark then shared that during one late-night call, Mia had reached out in distress, rambling about her traumatic experiences with William. He had answered out of concern, fearing something was wrong. When she began to offload her emotional baggage, Mark advised her to speak with her parents instead and emphasized that such late calls were inappropriate. He also told her she should have discussed it with me first. Disturbed by his omission, I expressed my discomfort with him keeping this from me, fearing it might erode my trust. Although he reassured me that he was not swayed by her tactics, I couldn't help but recall countless stories where such situations had led to betrayal. I insisted that any future calls from Mia should be handed to me, hoping to catch her in the act myself. Eventually, that moment came. He woke me in the middle of the night as her number flashed on the screen. When I answered, she hung up after realizing it wasn't Mark. The next day, I called her multiple times to confront her, but she didn't answer. I then texted her from Mark's phone, sternly warning her against contacting him at odd hours and stating that any urgent matter should be directed to me, not him. After that, she ceased her communications with him, and I felt a sense of relief. However, the peace was short-lived. After Mark proposed to me, and I shared our engagement news with my family, Mia resumed her old habits, bombarding Mark with messages and videos. Fed up, I called her out on her behavior, releasing all my pent-up frustration during the call. She barely responded, but the aftermath was immediate. My mother called, furious, accusing me of treating Mia harshly. She claimed my actions had caused Mia panic attacks and urged me to be more considerate towards her sister, who was supposedly struggling with depression following her divorce, an assertion that seemed contradictory to Mia's actual carefree demeanor post-divorce. Frustrated by my family's reluctance to see Mia's true nature, I told my dad that if they continued to ignore her manipulative behavior, I would have to distance myself from my own well-being. I was exhausted from being a pawn in Mia's games. Despite all the turmoil Mia had caused over the years, from body shaming and bullying to her audacious attempt to seduce my clients, I never anticipated she would go to such lengths to disrupt my life, especially as our wedding plans progressed. The situation reached a tipping point, but eventually my mom called to apologize, shaken by witnessing Mia's distress. According to one of my cousins, Mia had been lamenting my happy life to anyone who would listen, showcasing a mix of envy and regret that was hard to ignore. Mia's envy reached a boiling point as she spread rumors that I didn't deserve my success or my relationship with Mark, insisting that she, being the more attractive sister, was entitled to the best of everything. When I relayed her words to Mom, she paused and then advised me to focus on my upcoming wedding and the joyous life awaiting me with Mark. Fortunately, Mia kept a low profile leading up to the wedding day, allowing us to prepare without her interference. However, on the morning of the wedding, an urgent call from Mark's best friend shattered the peace. He insisted I come to Mark's room immediately, along with my parents. My heart raced as we rushed over, fearing the worst. We found Mark semi-conscious and shirtless, his groomsmen explaining that Mia had tried to sabotage him. As Mark was getting dressed, Mia appeared with a drink. Despite his refusal, she insisted, and he took a sip to avoid a scene, only to realize it was spite. He managed to excuse himself to the restroom and alerted his friend. By the time his friend arrived, Mark was slipping out of consciousness. His quick-thinking friend began recording as he entered the room and captured Mia inappropriately forcing herself on Mark, who was clearly incapacitated in protest. Mia, caught off guard by the friend's arrival, tried to spin the narrative, claiming they were consensually involved. When we arrived and confronted her, still visibly affected by the drug, it was a horrific scene. The drink, with residue still visible, underscored the severity of her actions. My parents were mortified. When Mom confronted Mia, who had hastily reapplied her smudged lipstick. Mia claimed it was mutual and that Mark had initiated. Mom, furious and disgusted by the lie, slapped her and exposed the truth with the video evidence. Realizing her plot had failed, Mia was promptly ejected from the venue by security, instructed not to let her return. The doctor confirmed Mark had been drugged, leading to severe nausea and disorientation, which delayed our ceremony as he recovered. The incident became the scandalous talk among our guests, overshadowing what should have been a day of celebration. When the wedding finally proceeded, Mark amended his vows, affirming his commitment to protect our relationship from any external negativity. After our honeymoon, my parents visited, extending heartfelt apologies to both of us for Mia's behavior, assuring us that she would no longer be a part of our lives. Dad had finally taken the step to ask her to move out and live independently. The whole ordeal left a lasting imprint on me, shaking the foundations of what was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. I was grateful for Mark's friend's quick action, without which I might have doubted Mark's loyalty under Mia's deceitful scheme. This incident, though painful, fortified our bond and our resolve to shield our union from any further malice.